I was 31 when my 5-year relationship ended. And I remember standing in my apartment, surrounded by half-empty shelves, looking in the mirror and asking, who the hell am I without this person? I couldn't answer. Not because I was sad, but because I genuinely didn't know anymore. And that terrified me more than the breakup itself. Somewhere along the way, I had disappeared, and I didn't even notice it happening. Here's what Otto Rank understood that most therapists won't tell you. The pain of a breakup isn't really about losing the other person. It's about being forced to confront the self you abandoned to be with them. And once you understand the 5 stages of reclaiming yourself after a relationship ends, you'll see that dissolution isn't destruction, it's rebirth. That mirror moment was the beginning of everything changing for me. And what I'm about to share with you is what I wish someone had told me back then. Let's dive into the psychology that explains how to actually come back to yourself. The first stage of reclaiming yourself is the most brutal, confronting the terror of being separate again. Otto Rank believed that human beings spend their entire lives oscillating between 2 fundamental fears. The fear of life, which is the fear of standing alone as an individual, and the fear of death, which is the fear of losing yourself completely in another. In relationships, most people escape the fear of life by merging. They dissolve into we and forget there was ever an I. So when the relationship ends, you're not just losing a partner, you're losing the hiding place you built to avoid being yourself. This is why breakups feel like dying, because psychologically they are. The merged self is dying, the we is being ripped apart, and suddenly you're alone again, separate, individuated, responsible for your own existence. This is why people immediately seek new relationships. It's not about love or even loneliness. It's about escaping that terrifying confrontation with separateness. Ever watched someone jump from relationship to relationship, never spending a day alone? That's not fear of being single. That's terror of meeting themselves without someone else to hide behind. The first step to reclaiming yourself isn't finding someone new. It's sitting in the emptiness and letting it teach you who you actually are. But surviving separateness is only the beginning. The second stage is grieving the person you pretended to be. Let me paint you a picture. During your relationship, you became someone. You liked what they liked. You laughed at their jokes even when they weren't funny. You abandoned friends they didn't approve of. You silenced opinions that caused conflict. You sculpted yourself into someone lovable to them. And now they're gone. But that false self you created, it's still there. Like a costume you forgot you were wearing. Rank called this the counter-will in reverse. So completely that you forgot what you actually wanted. You killed parts of yourself to make the relationship work. And now you have to mourn those murdered parts before you can resurrect them. Think about it. The music you stopped listening to because they hated it. The friends you abandoned. The dreams you called unrealistic because they didn't fit the shared plan. The opinions you swallowed. The needs you pretended you didn't have. All of that has to be grieved. Not the relationship, the self you sacrificed to maintain it. This is why people feel lost after breakups, even when they wanted to leave. It's not about missing the person. It's about not knowing who you are without the performance. Have you ever ended a relationship and felt relief mixed with terror? free but completely disoriented. That's the false self dying, and it has to be born again. The question Rank would ask: who were you before you became who they needed you to be? Finding that answer requires the next stage. The third stage is perhaps the most difficult. Reclaiming your capacity to want. Rank spent his career studying what he called will. Not willpower, not discipline, but the fundamental capacity to know what you want and to assert it. In healthy development, you learn to will. You discover your desires. You express them. You fight for them. You become someone who wants things and goes after them. But in relationships where you lost yourself, your will got suppressed, redirected, hijacked. You stopped wanting things for yourself and started wanting what kept the peace. After years of asking, "What do we want for dinner?" you've forgotten how to ask, "What do I want?" After years of compromise, you've lost the ability to desire without guilt. Notice how hard it is after a breakup to make simple decisions. What to eat, what to watch, what to do on a Saturday. That's not depression, that's atrophied will. You've forgotten how to want. Rank would say that reclaiming your will is the central task of becoming human again. It's not about being selfish. It's about remembering that you have the right to exist as a wanting, choosing, desiring being. Every time you make a choice based purely on what you want, you're resurrecting your will. Every time you say no without guilt, you're coming back to life. But most people never do this work. They jump into new relationships and hand their will over to someone else all over again. When was the last time you wanted something purely for yourself? Not for anyone else's approval, not to keep peace, just because you wanted it. The fourth stage is where destruction becomes creation. Here's what Rank understood about healing. You don't recover from loss by returning to who you were before. Recover by creating someone new. Rank saw the artist as the ideal psychological type. Not because they paint or write, but because they take the raw material of their experience and transform it into something new. After a breakup, you have raw material everywhere. Pain, loss, regret, anger, fear. The question is whether you'll let it destroy you or use it to create yourself anew. I remember the months after my breakup as the most creative of my life. Not happy, but alive in a way I hadn't been in years, because I finally had permission to ask, who do I want to become? Rank would say this is the gift hidden inside separation. When the we dies, you're forced to create an I from scratch. You become the artist of your own identity. This is why some people emerge from breakups transformed, more themselves than they ever were in the relationship, because they use the destruction as material for creation. It's also why others stay stuck for years. They keep trying to reconstruct the old self, the old life, the old patterns. They refuse to create, they just mourn. If you're going through a dissolution right now, ask yourself, what can I build from these ruins? Not rebuild, build. Something that never existed before. What would Rank say? The self you lost wasn't really yours anyway. This is your chance to create one that actually is. So there they are, The 5 stages of reclaiming yourself after a relationship ends. Confronting separateness. Grieving the false self. Resurrecting your will. Creating yourself anew. Accepting your fundamental aloneness. Notice what this list doesn't include. Finding someone new. Getting over them. Moving on. Because according to Rank, healing isn't about replacing one relationship with another. It's about finally becoming the individual you were supposed to be all along. And here's the beautiful part. Once you do this work, you become capable of a completely different kind of love. Not desperate merger, not self-abandonment, but 2 whole people choosing each other from a place of completeness. If you're in the aftermath of a dissolution right now, know this: you're not broken. You're being broken open. And what emerges can be more authentically you than anything that came before. The ending of a relationship isn't a failure. It's an invitation to finally meet yourself, to create yourself, to become who you actually are. Life is a succession of separations. Each one is a chance to be reborn. The relationship ended, but you don't have to. If this changed how you see breakups and dissolution, subscribe for more deep dives into what really drives human psychology. Because understanding yourself might be the key to finally having the love you actually want. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.